When I was 22 years old, I was trying to make extra money doing Postmates, which, for anyone out there who doesn't know what Postmates is, it's basically like DoorDash. And in essence, people order food, groceries, or just random junk through the app, and drivers kind of just pick it up and deliver it to you. It's kind of like pizza delivery, but for anything, really, within reason. The problem was, my car at the time, that '05 Focus I told you about in the last video, wasn't exactly ideal for putting hundreds of miles on weekly. So I started looking for something cheap, and when I say cheap, I mean like cheap, like $500 or less cheap. And if you've ever tried to buy a car with a whole $500 as your budget, you know that you're not really buying someone's car, you're kind of just buying their cursed problems or their ticking time bomb. So, one night I was bored, browsing the marketplace on Facebook. I found a listing for a '96 Camry. The entire ad was so sketch and basic. It just said, runs good, clean title, 500 bucks. And that was it. There was 3 crappy Nokia phone grade blurry photos on there, and no actual description, no real details. I didn't even know if it was a manual or an automatic. It was brand new as a manual. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. But there was just enough information to make me think I'd finally found a good deal. So, of course, I messaged the seller. I said, hey man, is the car still available? It was. And then he told me that it ran amazing. Said it needed gone quick because he had already bought another car. Okay, whatever. People do that all the time. Well, the next morning I drive from my hometown all the way down to East Sac to check this thing out. The entire drive down, I was already imagining making money with this thing, you know, dropping some food off, hopping in the whip, whipping around, and taking off. In my head, I was basically buying a business investment. And honestly, looking back with how simple it was to fix, it kind of was. When I arrived, it actually looked pretty decent. A lot better than the photos, I'll give you. But the paint was faded. On the hood, on the roof, even on the trunk, no big surprise. The seats, though, they were fucking immaculate. Like, I would buy this car again and daily it. Overall, it looked exactly like what you'd expect for a 20-some-odd-year-old Toyota. The seller started it before I even got there. I thought he was being helpful, but I really quickly also raised a red flag. You know, if you show up to buy a car and it's warmed up already, that can be that they're hiding something. The engine sounded smooth, though. There was no smoking. No weird noises. Nothing that would cause me to really think that it was an issue. I took it for a test drive, and it drove perfectly fine. There was no alignment issues. The thing drove straight down. I could let go of the wheel for a few seconds, and it wasn't pulling me into another lane. There was no dash indicators telling me, like, check engine light to scan it. I did scan it. Came back clean. No overheating. No transmission slippage issues or anything crazy like that. Honestly, it drove better than some of the cars I've driven that cost over $5,000, like 10 times the amount of money. It was kind of shocking. The guy seemed really nice, too, which probably should have been a red flag, the fact that he was overtly friendly, trying to almost sound like my buddy. He answered every question. He wasn't pushy with it. He didn't really care if I bought it or if someone else bought it, if you will. If anything, he seemed relieved that I was kind of interested in buying it. He wasn't trying to, you know, get me to buy it, saying, oh, I've got other people messaging me, so hurry it along. So, after about 20 minutes of talking, I gave him 500 bucks. He signed the title for me, and then I started driving home feeling like I had just honestly robbed the guy. I mean, $500 for a perfect running Toyota? Like, come on. And then, all of a sudden, an hour later, I learned why the car was $500. Halfway home, while driving on the highway, I noticed the temperature gauge started to slowly creep its way up more and more. And then, you know, my first reaction is maybe it's just a bad sensor. Dumb luck. Then I saw steam. It was a lot of steam. Suddenly, that reliable Toyota was turning into a mobile sauna. So, of course, I do what any reasonable person does. I pulled over. I popped the hood. Coolant everywhere. And I mean literally everywhere. And that's when I realized something. The reason the seller started the car before I arrived wasn't because he was being helpful. He was warming it up enough to look like it ran fine during the test drive. The overheating problem didn't start until the car had been driven for about 45 minutes to an hour. Long enough that most buyers would already be heading home, like I was. Long enough that the problem would become their problem instead of his. The guy knew exactly what he was doing. He wasn't selling me a reliable Toyota, he was selling me a time bomb with a clean title. The lesson I learned is that the cheapest car is almost never actually going to be the cheapest car there. Sometimes paying a little bit more up front does save you from paying a lot more later. And if a deal seems way too good to be true, there's usually a reason for getting such a great deal. Now, I know I'm going to get the question, well, okay, cool, you got a broken-ass Toyota, what was the problem with it? Well, to be honest with you, the radiator hose blew. The lower radiator hose had exploded off and just dumped coolant everywhere at that point. So, at that point, we just kind of threw a new radiator hose on it, and she was good as new again. Didn't heat up enough to melt any of the pistons or anything crazy like that, or crack the block, luckily. And I honestly had that thing for another year and a half before I ended up just selling it for the same 500 bucks I paid for it with another 40,000 miles on it. So, if you're ever thinking about buying a Toyota, an old 90s one, just for the reliability factor of it, do it. You're never going to regret it. Super easy to fix, like Lego pieces, and I would recommend one time and time again.